Good evening. Welcome to our Waterside Chat. Tonight I'm here at Bow Lake. This is where Larry and Carolyn Johansson live. Our family has actually spent a good amount of time here at this lake with them every summer. Larry and Carolyn are nice enough to have us here for the day of the lake, and we go swimming and boating and just take some time to be together. So thanks tonight for their hospitality and having me there. So during this pandemic, as you can imagine, I've had lots of time to think. And one of the things that I've been giving a lot of time to think about is the future of the church. Now, before the pandemic, the institutional church, as we know it, was in a lot of trouble. Mainly because young people are not really interested in the institutional church. And I could give you all sorts of statistics to back that up, but you don't need that. All you need to do is simply look at your own congregation. Who's there and who is not there? And I'm betting with pretty much certainty that you don't have many 18 to 35-year-olds in your congregation. Now, there's lots of people who will say that this pandemic is going to speed up the death of the institutional church. That congregations who were struggling before this are going to die quicker. Because we just have problems when we can't be together in the same building. And we've experienced this in our church. There's a technology gap that exists in people. There's some people that have very little tolerance or knowledge of technology, others who have more. So we're speeding that up. Now, thankfully at Concordia, we were on very strong footing before the pandemic, so we're going to be okay. But churches that were not, we're speeding up their troubles. So all of this might make you think that I'm worried about all of these things, but I'm not. And I've thought a lot about this, especially this time, because I was thinking about what made Christianity a worldwide religion. What was it that made it so appealing to so many generations of the last 2,000 years? How did Christianity spread from a small movement in Palestine in the first century to a religion of millions of people around the world? And I think the answer to that is the power of the story that we tell. The story of a peasant preacher who taught love of our neighbor and forgiveness of sins. The story of a person born in a manger and dying on a cross. The story of a revolutionary ideas that challenge the status quo and turn the world upside down. It is a story that has the power to change lives and push empires to worry. The story of God finding value in every human life. So much so that God became one of us and faced all of our trials and tribulation. It is a story of God with us, poor, sinful, corrupt people. It tells us that God believes in us, that we can be redeemed, that we can be just and merciful and loving. And Jesus showed us the way through sacrifice and truth and love and grace. What a powerful and timeless story. It has survived the rise and fall of multiple superpowers. It has survived the generations of doubts and fears. It has survived the corrupt church who forgot its central message. It has survived really bad preaching. It has survived unprecedented technological achievement. It has survived the whims of culture. It has crossed every line we have drawn in the sand. The story has encouraged slaves, middle-class people. It has reached the heights of power. And it has encouraged us to love our neighbors, forgive sins, and endure all of life's difficulties. That's the reason I'm not worried about the future of the faith. This story will be what continues to sustain us into the future. It is a story powerful enough to even overcome this present moment. And I want you today to think about your own story. How does it intersect with the stories that we encounter in the Bible? Where in our lives have we found forgiveness or redemption, hope, truth, or love? I'm sure that you have those stories. I'm sure that you tell them to each other, to your kids and grandkids. Times when you survived hardship and overcame obstacles, and how it was your faith that helped you through it. That is why the story of Jesus still has relevance today, because our own stories overlap with the story of Jesus. And I'm even more encouraged in this time, because young people, they continue to hear and tell us new stories. And if we can just open our hearts to those stories that we might have ignored in the past. Today I was really happy that Becky Field, who lives in Concord, she came out with a new book, and she She was nice enough to bring it over so I could buy it from her today. She takes these beautiful pictures of immigrants in New Hampshire, and then she tells their stories. It combines her beautiful photography with the story of new Americans. They're stories of hardships that they faced, of things lost and found, but they're also stories of hope. And for me, these connect to the story of Jesus Christ because we know this world is not wonderful for everyone. We know that there's injustice and war, but isn't it amazing how people overcome that and learn to live again and even find new homes in new places? All of these new movements in our country tell us a different story of how life is for some, but also how it can be different. Black Lives Matter, the LGBTQ plus community, and Me Too. When black people share with us the pain, their pain, and how they've tried so hard over the years to fight, we have to admire their perseverance and hope. Their pain should be our collective pain, and their cries for justice should be ours. I've been reading this book recently called The Cross and the Lynching Tree by the famous theologian James Cone. And it's lamentable, as he states in the book, how we, white people, have missed the connection between those two symbols of terror. Cone reminds us that there are stories in the world that we have missed, but show us the deep connection to Jesus' own story. When I hear the story of someone from the LGBTQ plus community that was ostracized from their family because of who they are, I'm heartbroken. I want a world where love is love and it just doesn't matter. The church for too long has not allowed those stories to be part of our stories. I'm hoping we can do better as we go forward. Or when you hear a story of a woman who was sexually harassed or assaulted, you feel the injustice of a world that silences the stories of those people that hurt. Because you realize the only true way for us to heal is to tell our stories so that we can name our truth. Maybe you're watching this and are thinking to yourself that somehow these stories diminish my story as a cisgender white heterosexual man. All I can say to you is that the more I read and hear those stories, the more it leads me to the depth of Jesus' own story. I'm reminded how Jesus broke through all those lines that divide. Jesus encouraged women to tell their stories, championed the stories of those considered less by others, and stood up to the unjust system that only told the story of the empire. There's plenty of room in the kingdom of God for all of our stories that show us the depths of God's forgiveness, redemption, hope, truth, grace, and love. It will be those stories that will carry the church and make it vital for the future. It will be the story of the saving acts of God and Jesus Christ that will help us live through our lives. Just some things I've been thinking about in this pandemic time. Thank you for joining us here tonight. I hope you'll join us again next Wednesday at 6 o'clock for our next Waterside Chat. And until then, God bless you, and may the story of Jesus sustain and uplift you. God bless.